The book of Kings runs through the same basic cycle, narrative cycle 3 times. There are 3 large cycles in the book of Kings. Each of these cycles begins with a David figure. David, of course, is the founder of the United Kingdom. Jeroboam is the founder of the Northern Kingdom, and Jeroboam is a David-like figure. His life story resembles the life story of David. Omri is the founder of the dynasty, the Omride dynasty, that includes Ahab. And Omri is also described in a David-like way. Each of the great kingdoms, each of the great dynasties in the book of Kings begins with a David-like figure. And the end of each dynasty is also, each one is similar to the other. The Omride dynasty ends with the destruction of Ahab and Ahab's house. And there's several elements that happen in each of these final moments of the dynasties or the kingdoms in the book of Kings. At the end of the Omride dynasty, a dynasty comes to an end, the Omride dynasty comes to an end. There's a destruction of a great temple, the temple of Baal that Ahab built in Samaria. That's destroyed by Jehu. And then there's a threat to the Davidic line. In the case of the Omride dynasty, the threat is that Jehu wipes out many of the descendants of David, and then Athaliah cleans up what's left, and she kills all the royal seed. And the entire Davidic dynasty, the entire Davidic covenant hangs by the thread of one person, and that one person is an infant, the infant Joash. But Joash is saved, Joash is hidden away in the temple, and 7 years later Joash is brought out and he becomes king. So at the end of each of these cycles, you have the end of a dynasty, a temple destruction, and a threat to the Davidic dynasty, but a threat that ends with the Lord intervening to deliver. The same thing happens at the end of the Northern Kingdom. That begins with Jeroboam, who's a David-like figure, and at the end of the Northern Kingdom, you again have a kingdom come to an end. You have a destruction of a temple, in this case, the shrines for golden calves that Jeroboam establishes up in the north in Dan and in Bethel, which is right on the border of the northern and southern kingdoms. And then there's a threat to the Davidic dynasty. The Assyrians invade Judah, the same Assyrians who have overthrown the northern kingdom, invade Judah, and they besiege Jerusalem. And Hezekiah is about to be beaten, and that would be the end of the Davidic dynasty. The Davidic dynasty again hangs by a thread, and yet the Lord delivers them by sending the angel of death to kill the Assyrians. And then the very end of the book of Kings, we have the same kind of cycle. The book of Kings begins with David. It ends with what looks like the end of the Davidic dynasty. It ends with the destruction of a house, the destruction of Solomon's temple, and it ends with a threat to the Davidic dynasty, as members of the Davidic dynasty are taken into exile or killed. But as always in Kings, the Davidic dynasty is always saved. The Lord is committed to saving David, and the sign that he saved the Davidic dynasty at the end of the book of Kings is the elevation of Jehoiachin out of prison to the table of the king of Babylon. The sign that the Lord is going to continue the Davidic dynasty, he is going to bring the greater David. The sign that that's going to happen is that you have a Davidic king at the table of the world emperor, at the table of the Babylonian emperor. That's a sign of the continuation of that promise. And that's the same promise that we enjoy. We enjoy the fruit of that by the birth of Jesus, by the death and resurrection of Jesus. Jesus, of course, goes through that same cycle. The Davidic dynasty seems to come to an end with the cross, but the Lord revives it again. And the fact that we are gathered at the table of Jesus, the fact that we're gathered at the table of the great world emperor, is a sign that that Davidic promise is going to continue. The Lord is going to bring the Davidic kingdom, his own kingdom, and that kingdom will reign forever. The fact that we are gathered at the table of Jesus, the greater David, the greater Jehoiachin, is a sign of that promise.